Hey everyone, I'm Carter, the game director on BitCraft, and today we're going to do a short video on the early game of BitCraft and some of the skills and professions you can do in the game. So I've got here a fresh character, and we're going to just be looking at what the early game looks like. Normally when you start the game, you'll have a tutorial that will kind of walk you through the basic steps of the game, but today we're just going to do it ourselves. So when you first get into the game, you'll always spawn in the grasslands area, and one of the important things about that is that it gives you access to two very early starting resources that you'll need to get started, which is flint and bushes. So we can start by just coming over here and using our hands to gather some flint. And you'll see that, well, I don't have any tools. The only thing I can do is gather with my hands, which will only give hits of 1, which causes the gathering process to be quite slow. Then I can gather some bushes. And once you get some tools, the tools impact these numbers of damage that you're doing to the resources, which will help you gather a lot faster. So now that we have some sticks and some flint, we can open the build menu with B, and we can come in here and search for a basic workbench, a crude workbench, and we can throw that down. And so once you place that, you'll see what we actually get here is a construction site. And so the construction site is what allows us to collaborate on building a building. And so in this case, I'm just building it by myself, but in later parts of the game, you might be building larger buildings that require a lot of people to add resources and work together to build it. So here we can grab some sticks and throw them in here. We can also click add all, and then we're going to build it. And so again, here we're just using our hands. So once you're done constructing the workbench, we can right click on it here, and we'll see that currently I have a lot of tools discovered, but if you're just starting the game, you'll probably only have access to the flint tool bundle, which will just give you a few of the essential tools to get started. So we can craft one of those right now. All right, let's collect that. And so you can see I got 4 tools here. I've got a flint axe, a flint mallet, a flint machete, and flint scissors. And so I can left click these to put them into my tool slots, but you can also right click and equip the tool as well if you want to do it like that. Perfect. So now that I've got those tools equipped, I can make a few more. So let's grab ourselves a pickaxe. And a cooking pot. And finally, we'll grab a fishing rod. So with these tools, the main way that you're able to use them is actually by equipping them in your tool slots, which are in the character window under professions. And so you can open this window by default by hitting the H key. And then you can go to the professions tab here, and you can see that we have a list of all of my professions in the game. And you can click on any one of these and you can see if we have a tool equipped in the tool slot. So I don't have a cooking pot equipped, so I'll just equip that right now. Now it's in my cooking slot. We could go to the mining page, equip this. Again, you don't need to have this window open. You can just click from here. But now I can see that, you know, carpentry, I don't have a tool. Cooking, I have a tool. Farming, I don't have a tool. Fishing, I do have a tool. So we can go through, and if we wanted to, we could go and craft all of these tools here, and then we would have a tool for every profession in the game. But for right now, we don't need to make all of those. We can get started with just what we have. And so the next thing you'll be wondering is, what do I do from here? Probably the most useful thing you could do next is start to gather a bit of the basic materials. And so using those tools that we just got, we should be able to get started. So one thing we can start to do is foraging using our machete. So we can come over here and gather from these lavender plants, and these will give us plant fiber, which is an essential source of making cloths and ropes. So you can see now that I've got the flint machete equipped, instead of doing damage values of 1, I'm now doing damage values of 8. And this value comes from in here. If I go to foraging, I can see that the machete power on this tool is 8. So it's generally doing 8, and then sometimes I'm having a crit that will do 9. So I can gather a few of these, and you'll see that now I'm getting some plant fiber. Another thing we could go gather is some wood over here by the edge of the forest. And so we can come hit this rotten log and get a few pieces of wood. We can come gather some mud here, or some clay. The other thing you'll notice as you start to play BitCraft is that you can't gather everything, even if you've crafted all the types of tools. So for example, here we have some mushrooms, which say they require a tier 2 machete equipped to be able to gather them. And we also have some other clay right here beside the one that we can gather, which says that it requires a tier 2 machete as well. This is because the machete is the foraging tool, and so these things both require a higher tier of foraging tools. In the future, we're going to be splitting that out. So yeah, you might need a shovel and a machete, and then it'll properly make sense which one you're gathering with. And so what I would need to be able to gather these is 2 things. I would need in here in my foraging, you can see that this flint machete at the top of the tooltip says tier 1, and in the top left of the icon has a Roman numeral 1. This is because this item, this tool is a tier 1 item. And so in order to gather tier 2 materials, I would need to get a tier 2 machete. So as you progress in the game, you'll eventually be able to craft higher tier tools, and those tools will be able to gather for the higher tiers. So for right now, these resources are not accessible to me. The other thing that you'll need is you'll need a high enough skill level to equip and use the tool. And so even if someone came and traded me a tier 2 tool right off the bat, I might not be able to gather these resources right away. Because I'm not skilled enough to do it yet. So I could use my higher tier tool to gather tier 1 materials until I get high enough level, and then I would be able to gather the tier 2 resources. And so next in our progression, we'll cut down a tree to get a little bit more wood. And while we're doing that, I can explain a little bit more about the progression in BitCraft. The main way that you progress in the game is by leveling up your skills, improving your tools, building kind of buildings which allow you to craft those items that you've gathered to the tier that you're working with, and then eventually you're able to get a high enough level, craft the next tier of tools, and move into the next tier. And so part of the way being able to play the game works is that all of the skills are interdependent, and so if you're trying to play the game kind of on your own, isolated from other players, you're going to need access to all the skill crafting tables, as well as to some extent leveling up in all the skills. But the way the game is designed is that very quickly you'll be able to work with other players to progress without needing to do everything yourself. And so now that we've got a little bit more resources here, we can start a little bit of a basic setup. To get started, you're going to need a few buildings. And so the first one that we almost always want to get started with is the tailoring table. So we can build this out of just some things that we've already gotten, which is the rough wood logs and the plant fiber. So once we have this, you'll see that we have access to a few items that we can now craft here. And so now we could start tailoring if we wanted to. So using some of that plant fiber we gathered, we can craft some rough twine. So why don't we craft a few of those? And you'll see that compared to the building that we were using before, this building actually has multiple project slots. And you can see that I'm using this one. The way project slots work is that other players can use this building at the same time. And every time you're crafting something, you're using one of those project slots. So right now you can see that, Minch, in that case that's me, is crafting 6 rough twine in this slot. And you can see my progress. If I were to walk away and come back, we can see that this is paused. And someone could just resume that. And now it's kind of being done by them. And so once it's done as well, I could walk away and we see that it's locked to Minch. And so what that means is that for the time at which this is finished, there's a small grace period where only you can collect it. So I could take that now. One of the important materials that you'll need a lot in the early game is rope. And rope is used for a lot of the buildings. So we're going to use some of the twine that we just made to weave some rope. And you'll see that while I'm crafting this, I'm now using those flint scissors that we made for tailoring. So I can collect that. You'll also notice that there's a big log on my back, and so you might be wondering, what is that? That is cargo. So in BitCraft, there are two sizes of items. We have regular items, which is what you have here in most of your inventory, and there's also these long rectangular item objects, which we call cargo. And so cargo are basically large items that you can only carry one at a time, at least on your player. And they require different types of storage and vehicles to move around. And so I can drag this onto the floor here and set it back down. Now my cargo slot's freed up. While you're carrying cargo, you can't sprint and you walk at a reduced rate. So thinking about when and how you move these is an important part of the logistics in BitCraft. And so from here, if I wanted to keep progressing in the game, the main thing that I'd be focused on is crafting all those tools so I can do a little bit of everything at the first tier. And then probably I'd be coming in here to my crafting section for tier 1, and I'd be trying to make sure that I craft each of the buildings that exist in the game for all of the different professions. And so that might include a loom to weave, it might include a farming station, a sawhorse to do some carpentry, it might include the kiln or the oven for baking, tanning tubs for making leather, hide working beams for preparing the hides and preparing the leather, a cooking station for making meals. All of these things are going to help kind of work together to advance through the tier until we're able to access the items, all the items of that tier. And then eventually that will lead us to being able to make tools which can reach the next tier. And that's kind of the main game loop of advancing your skills in BitCraft. The last part that's relevant to the skills of BitCraft is achievements. So as you level up your skills in BitCraft, you will progress on unlocking certain achievements. And so we only have a very basic implementation of these right now, but we're going to be expanding on these more in the future. And so you can see as I open this here, I can go to the Professions tab, and we can just pick, we'll pick tailoring. This is one I've already advanced a little bit in. So if we scroll down here, you can see that we have Beginner Tailor, which will give me some achievement points and a title. In this case, the title is Beginner Tailor. So then as you progress through the levels, you'll reach later achievements, which will sometimes unlock titles or other cosmetics. In this case, we've got a Beginner Tailor outfit and also more achievement points. Right now, the achievement points don't do or unlock anything in the game. They're basically just a status symbol of how many achievements you've completed. And so you can see this is one where I've gotten fairly deep in and I've actually unlocked the level 40 achievement. So once you've unlocked these achievements, you can actually come into your vault here, which you can access by V. And we could come here and search tailoring. And we can see these outfits. So here we've got the Beginner Tailor outfit, which I could wear. And we can also see that right now I'm seeing Beginner Forager as my title. So why don't we come in here and we change that to Beginner Tailor, Novice Tailor, Apprentice Tailor, Journeyman Tailor. So let's throw on that Journeyman Tailor title, and let's actually go to the level 40 outfit. I'll show off my achievement. So now I can close that, and now everyone that sees me will know that I am quite an accomplished tailor in BitCraft. So that should be a quick overview of the skills in BitCraft and how you get started with them in the early game. We're going to do some more videos looking into, once you get established, how you progress through the content and how you kind of work with other players living in a small settlement. See you next time. Hey everyone, I'm Carter, the game director on BitCraft. In this video, we're going to go over the mechanics of our newly added Empires system. We've gone over a lot of higher level information and objectives of Empires in past developer discussions, but we never did a proper breakdown of the actual mechanics, so hopefully this will serve as a simple tutorial as well for the system. We've also released a bunch of information in text form in a blog post, which you can check out in the description below. Before you can found an empire or have your settlement join an empire, you must first have an existing claim which you are the owner of with the prerequisite research unlocked. Once the empire infrastructure research is complete, your claim will become eligible to be a part of an empire, and you will also gain access to the Empire tab in the Claim UI. Founding your own empire will cost you some Hexite shards which come directly from your personal vault, but in turn for this you will become the emperor of the newly founded empire. Hexite shards spent following the founding of the empire, however, will be charged directly from the Hexite treasury of the empire, and not your personal Hexite vault. Don't forget to give your empire a memorable and unique name. Now that you have your very own empire, you can view its details through the new Empire window, which will have a button on your HUD as well as the current hotkey P by default. Founding an empire will make the claim it was founded in the capital of the empire. This is important to note from a strategic standpoint, but we'll touch on that later in the video. Currently, the capital of an empire can't be moved, and deconstructing the capital claim totem will result in the complete deletion of your empire. In the future, however, we want to add support for moving the capital, possibly at some cost. In the beginning, your empire will have no subjects and no territory in the world, so before you can actually do anything with your empire, you'll want to get set up first. The most essential structure that every empire needs is a foundry. The foundry is what allows you to turn raw Hexite shards and supplies from your capital claim into Hexite capsules. These are a key material for all things empires. Foundries can only be built in the capital claim and cost Hexite shards from the treasury of the empire to be built. If you don't have enough shards, you can donate more to your empire from your personal vault through the empire window. You can then go to the build menu while inside of your capital claim, and under the empire section of the build menu you can place a foundry. These will build instantly and not require a construction site. There is no limit to the amount of foundries you can have, but they must all be built within your capital. All of the empire-related structures operate on their own permissions system. Until your empire captures some territory, only the emperor is able to act on behalf of the empire, but with territory comes the ability to delegate those permissions to others. Once you have one or more Hexite capsules, you are ready to capture some land for your empire. To control territory as an empire, you need to place a structure called an Empire Watchtower, which covers an area of 3 by 3 territory squares on the map. You can view this grid by pressing F2 with the map open. To place a watchtower, you must either physically go to the area you want to build it, or select that area on the map and mark it for expansion. This gives anyone in the empire, besides the emperor or other authorities, permission to establish a watchtower on behalf of the empire. By going to the approved territory with a Hexite capsule, you can use the build menu to place the watchtower into the world. Watchtowers include a small neutral claim as well, which means you cannot build them near an existing claim like another player's settlement or an ancient ruin. It's important to maintain the watchtower after finishing building it so it doesn't become inactive or captured by a rival empire. Watchtowers are maintained using a similar system to claims by filling them with energy using Hexite capsules instead of supplies. There are a few factors that determine how quickly your watchtower's energy is depleted. First, the more watchtowers you have, the higher the maintenance cost of all watchtowers in your empire. Second, the further the watchtower is from the capital of your empire, the higher its maintenance cost will be. Finally, if a watchtower isn't connected to territory that contains an aligned settlement, it will be considered isolated from the rest of your empire and will experience a steep additional cost in energy. In order to mitigate this, you need to make sure that any area of watchtower territory has at least one settlement which is aligned with your empire. This can include the capital. Adding aligned settlements to your empire doesn't have any effect other than preventing watchtower isolation, but it can be a way to flex the size and influence of your empire. Any settlement can join an empire by going to the Empire tab of the claim once they have researched empire infrastructure and selecting to join an existing empire. As a character, you can swear allegiance to an empire. This is totally separate from claims aligning with empires. It's valid to be a member of one empire on your character, while your settlement is in another empire, all while your settlement's location is in another empire's territory. Once you have your first territory, you can begin to delegate some of the administration of your empire to your authorities, which are ranks in your empire with unique titles and permissions bestowed upon by the emperor. To become a citizen of an empire, any player can come to either the capital or an active watchtower of that empire and swear allegiance to the empire. A character can only be aligned to one empire at a time. Any citizen can donate and carry out basic delivery actions for the empire. If a citizen donates enough, they can ascend from citizen to noble rank, which is a nameable rank to distinguish citizens who contributed sufficiently to the empire. The emperor can choose the donation threshold at which a citizen ascends to the noble rank. Empires can have infinite citizens and nobles, however, authorities are unlocked based on the amount of territory an empire has. It is up to the emperor to decide how they want to use these ranks. In addition to unlocking more authority ranks as your empire grows, you will see that your crown becomes more ornate as you control more and more territory. As an empire, if you want to capture another empire's watchtower, you must either go in person and start the siege yourself, or you can use the map to mark that area for siege. Any member of the empire can begin the siege by bringing a Hexite capsule to the other empire's watchtower, which has been marked. Interacting with their watchtower while holding a Hexite capsule, while there's no ongoing siege, you will get the option to start a siege and be able to place a siege cannon somewhere nearby the watchtower. Once placed, both the attackers and defenders will be able to see in the UI the tug of war between the attacking and defending sides of the siege. The siege will end under two conditions. If the defending energy reaches 0, the attackers will win. The watchtower will become the attacking empires, and any remaining energy from the attack will move over to the energy needed to maintain the watchtower instead. Or the attacker energy reaches 0, in which case the defenders win. The siege was unsuccessful, and any leftover energy from the defense will stay as energy in the watchtower when the siege ends, up to some limit. We've been really happy to see how players have dove into the Empire's system already, and can't wait to see how it evolves over longer and longer playtests as we're able to add more features in the future. Thanks for watching.